Okay, the broadband issue, it's complicated, but a couple of politicians this week at least made an attempt to simplify it for us. Here they are.
If someone had asked you when you had a gas light and a kerosene-run refrigerator, is it worth putting electricity to your front door? You would have said, and your party would have said, oh, we don't need electricity connected to homes. People are doing perfectly well with kerosene fridges.
This is not about kerosene fridges and electricity. This is about whether or not we want to supply every Australian with a Ferrari or a Commodore.
Now, what do you make of that?
Well, it's an interesting argument. I think it is quite a persuasive argument that Labor's finally come up with something that says, you know, this don't think this newfangled technology of the future is going to be, you know, too scary and unnecessary, that in fact this is what happened with every stage of technological development. I think Julia Gillard said the same thing about the Olivetti typewriter, you know. Who would have thought we would have ended up with what we've got now when we have the Olivetti? So, you know, that is trying to simplify the argument a little bit. I don't know about the Ferrari sort of, I'm not sure that worked quite as well.
Except computers are a lot cheaper than Olivetti typewriters. That's a difference.
What about, though, the white elephant argument that Tony Abbott says, no, there's a risk it'll be a white elephant?
I don't think there's any doubt that Labor's got an appeal, and this is the way of the future, high speed, but there are some good reasonable counter-arguments that why put all your eggs in the one technology, which is fibre? Wouldn't it be better to have competition in which you had different providers, some saying microwave will do it that way, some saying fibre? Can Labor be trusted to deliver it on time? On the other hand, the coalition's policy doesn't really remove that situation where Telstra's got a monopoly. Well, this will remove that. So I think Labor's winning this debate, but nonetheless, you shouldn't, completely wipe aside that.
No, but how can you possibly produce something, or tell me if you can, that for 1/7 the cost, you can come up with something that's even in the ballpark?
Well, they're not paying for the lot. They're going to have the private sector pay for some of it, and they're not. Where the cost is, where the big cost is connecting everything to the household, and this is where they'll save money. They're also saying there's quite a deal of thought that a lot of households don't want to pay the cost of having these very high speeds. They won't need it. There's nothing they need it for. So why they have to pay, I don't know what it is, $80, $100?
Look, I think Labor's winning it. I mean, that detail that you mentioned is hugely important, but I think Labor's winning the argument simply because it's enthusiastic about it.
Yeah,
and you get the impression that the coalition have come to the issue lately, and B, just trying to find faults in it rather than embrace it as
a really
good
point. For months on end, they just had they had no policy at all. It looked like they just wanted to rip up Labor's fibre, basically.
Exactly.
If they had an alternative, why not start talking about it 3, 4, 6 months ago?
Because they didn't have an alternative.
And I think,
they were just trying to undermine the Labor policy.
I think Tony Abbott didn't do well on the 7:30 report when he was interviewed about this, because he showed he didn't seem to be interested in it. Now, that might be an unfair assessment, but he didn't appear to be interested. He didn't appear to understand that the debate that they were actually having was about how fast is this thing going to be? Because it does matter how fast it is, because you can and can't do certain things on the internet if it's not fast enough.
And just on that, on the speed and so on, of course, there was an announcement during the week that they're about to go 10 times faster. He's the head of NBN Co.
If I'd have sat on it, there's a chance that the information would have leaked out anyway, so I thought it's better to be upfront and just do what we normally do and announce it to the industry. In fact, I think to some extent it was a surprise to the folks in government when we said this is what we're doing.
He actually only told me about it yesterday.
This idea that, hey presto, we are suddenly going to get 10 times the speed from something that isn't even built yet, I find utterly implausible.
See, it's exactly what I mean. Instead of saying, wow, wouldn't that be fantastic to get hold of this? Instead saying, oh, rubbish, yeah, you read that in a comic book, didn't you?
It is a fair point. It is a little bit of a coincidence that all of a sudden when we're arguing about speeds of the internet and he's got himself into trouble, well, hey presto, suddenly we have it 10 times faster.
Flip side of interest rates going up during a campaign.
I think it's plausible, but on the other hand, microwave speeds are picking up too. I don't go for the stuff about leaders have to have complete technical knowledge of things. If you looked at Julia Gillard's announcement on water, she did not have a clue how that scheme works. She said we have bought 900 billion litres of water for the river. Not so. Very different beast they'd bought. They'd bought water entitlements of that amount. Penny Wong had to later point out that the amount of real water that they bought was 627 billion, a lot less. And it's not just a matter of getting a figure wrong. She clearly didn't understand how that policy works.